Today we're going to start our differentiated learning series. In our last staff meeting, we discussed how we wanted to service our kids a little bit better. We talked to our CICs and our special ed teachers and our district personnel on how we wanted our campus focus to be. So this year the district has decided that we're going to have a differentiated learning series. Right in front of you, you have your agenda and you have the PowerPoint. So I want you to follow along as we go. In the end, all learners need your energy, your heart, and your mind. They have that in common because they are young humans. How they need you, however, differs. Unless we understand and respond to those differences, we may fail learners. This is something that comes from Carol Ann Tomlinson. She is the promoter of differentiated learning. And we're going to also have a book from her that we're going to read as a campus as well. Today, we're going to do the I will and we will statement. We're going to read the we will and I will together. So, we will investigate and learn ways to differentiate instruction to implement a series of lessons within instruction.
I will strive to engage all learners by attempting to match their needs by utilizing ongoing assessments to help better match students' needs with instruction.
So basically, we're going to talk about how we can better service our kids, whether they're special ed or they're GT learners. As we talked about, this is something that holds true to Carol Ann Tomlinson. We're going to describe what is differentiated learning. Differentiated instruction is a teaching philosophy based on the premises that teachers should adapt instruction to student differences. Rather than marching students through the curriculum lockstep, teachers should modify their instruction to meet students' varying readiness levels, learning preferences, and interests. Therefore, the teacher proactively plans a variety of ways to get at and express learning. When we talk about that, what do you think of when we talk about how we're going to get our kids prepared for differentiated learning?
By first showing them that there are different ways to learn than just one way, that they have different paths that they can take in order to get the results in the way that is more accessible to them.
Okay, we're going to look at a video on what this guy believes that differentiated learning is.
That insanity is not what differentiation is all about. Differentiating instruction is really a way of thinking, not a pre-planned list of strategies. Oftentimes it is making decisions in the moment based on this mindset. It's recognizing that, to paraphrase Rick Wormley, fair doesn't always mean treating everyone equally. It's recognizing that all of our students bring different gifts and challenges, and that as educators we need to recognize those differences and use our professional judgment to flexibly respond to them in our teaching. Carol Tomlinson talks about the ability to differentiate in three areas: content, process, and product. For content, student choice is one way we might differentiate, like allowing students to choose their research topics or essay prompts. As teachers, we need to keep our eyes on the prize. In other words, we have to keep asking ourselves, what are the main learning objectives? One day, my students were writing an argument essay about what would be the worst natural disaster to experience. John's head was down on the desk. He was not doing anything. I knew that he was interested in football, so I told him that he could write an essay on why his favorite team was the best. He would still have to make an argument just about football instead of hurricanes or earthquakes. His eyes lit up. He got to work and wrote what his mother later told me was the first essay he'd ever written in school. He had followed all the guidelines of a good argument essay. The prize, in this case, was learning to write an argument essay, not learning to write about natural disasters. To differentiate by process, teachers can change up how they group students. Sometimes a mixed ability group might work best, while sometimes it might be appropriate to have same ability groups. We might have an English proficient buddy work with an English language learner to help them out. During independent reading time in my early morning class several years ago, one student tended to fall asleep. I told him that if he wanted, he could go to the back and sit on a desk and read. Soon, several others joined him. A few days later, I saw another student dozing off. Before I could say anything, one of his classmates whispered to him, "Just go sit on a desk." Again, it's a matter of keeping our eyes on the prize. What are the learning objectives and what are the best roads to get there for different students? Teachers can also differentiate by the type of product students create. The major demonstration of learning doesn't always have to be an essay or a multiple choice test. One year I had a student who liked to doodle when other students or I were talking. I told her it was okay as long as she was doodling about the information we were discussing. She built on those doodles to create a final project that brilliantly and visually represented all the key points we had covered. When I give tests, I often give students an extra blank page where they can write anything else they remember about the topic being tested that they think is important. I often find the quality of thinking and writing better there than in response to my test questions. None of the differentiating strategies I've mentioned have created any extra work for me. They did require that I have relationships with my students to know their strengths, challenges, and interests. And I needed to demonstrate flexibility in my thinking. Making these strategies successful also required building a strong class culture so that some of the students were being treated differently and they understood why. And they understood that was the only way to be truly fair. The ideas mentioned here are just a drop in the bucket. There are a zillion other ways we can support our students' gifts and challenges. We just need to keep our minds and ears open.
Okay, with that being said, keeping your minds and ears open, what did we get from that video?
We understand that there's a difference between fairness and equity, that having a fair shot at something does not mean that it's an equal shot. Say for instance, if there's a child that has, very good vision, and they stand at one point, if they stand at a certain, area to shoot a basket, it may be fair for them. But a child who has, limited vision capabilities maybe needs a closer mark to take the shot. So they're still taking the shot, it's just the accessibility is different.
Good. With all of this, the district did go in and we did some research on, is differentiated learning beneficial? And we came up with some key points. I'm only gonna go over one. Differentiated instruction is the result of a synthesis of a number of educational theories and practices. And these are some of the practices that we're going to go over today. Key principles of a differentiated classroom. The teacher is clear about what matters in subject matter. The teacher understands, appreciates, and builds upon student differences. Just like you just said, Ms. Farley, it gives us the advantage once we have accommodations or you have modified what it is that you want our goals to be. We're gonna talk about how we're gonna change our assessments and our instruction, how we're gonna change the content and the process, because just like you said, if I need help And to get to my goal is to be able to shoot that basket, but you're gonna put me a little bit closer. I'm still learning the content, I'm just a little bit closer. All students are gonna participate. As teachers and students, we're gonna collaborate on some of these goals together. Because our ultimate outcome is what? Maximizing the student's growth. Is the teacher responsible for the learning? Are we responsible for the learning? Yes, we are. But our students are also responsible as well. It says here, is a teacher's response to learning needs guided by general principles of differentiation? What is our goal? What do we want to see? Then as well, what does the district want to see? And these are some of the key factors that the district wants to see. They want to see respectful tasks. They want to see flexible grouping. And in order to do this, we're gonna all have to get together as well as a campus after we have went over this training to come up with ways on how we want to see this learning done. And the key is you guys, which are my SPED department. That is the key. So that's why you are here as well. Human beings share common feelings and needs, and schools should help us understand and respect those commonalities. Here, as the district went through and we started looking at things, this video is going to show how a small town got together and the principal noticed that she needed to utilize differentiation within her classroom and within her school.
My name is Connie Erickson. I was the founding principal of Mesquite Elementary. I began my teaching career here in Vail at Acacia Elementary, and I was there for about 4 years. I thought, oh, if I could do my dream school, what would I do? And then when I was asked to be the planning principal for this school and help plan it, I was thinking, what can we do different? What can we do to really help children? And then as we went into our second and third year, the state testing became more and more and more. When the test scores came in, we just, were really, really devastated to see that, let's say for instance, at 5th grade, I remember we were like in the 39th percentile in math. You think you're teaching and that you're doing a good job, but then when we see that, we knew that something had to change.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. In the enrichment strategies, of course, Janet's gonna play an important part with that.
We just started, talking here as a team, and we came up with a plan. We were gonna start implementing Reteach and Enrich in the second semester, which we did do.
When the new system came and we started all collaborating, the tracks were gone, the collaboration was occurring, the sharing of ideas. So there's been this great collaboration piece where we all really help each other.
The staff came together, we were able to design the Reteach and Enrich program, and it was just amazing what happened.
So these formatives are a way of assessing everything that you have learned about prime and composite numbers.
We wanted to give students an opportunity to be retaught skills that they did not learn. So what we did is we made sure that we had a time in the day where if students did not master the skill that was previously taught, we gave them time to master that.
And the math scores jumped tremendously when we got them back after that Ames test. And we went from a performing school to an excelling school. It was the key to moving us up. The leadership in Vail, starts out with people like Katie.
Connie was my mentor. I worked for her as a teacher and really kind of followed in the footsteps of what Connie started at Mesquite, and have just expanded upon that. I'm Katie Dabney. I'm the principal of Mesquite Elementary in the Bell School District in Tucson, Arizona.
Connie Erickson was promoted, and Katie's name popped to the surface because leadership is not something that comes with the title. Leadership is enhanced with the title.
We're a team in the Bell School District, and just as our teachers collaborate and work together and share ideas, we do that at a district level. I really believe that it's exciting to be a part of something successful. And I can go home every night and know that we have positively impacted the life of a child, and that what we're doing the best that we can for kids. And so that helps me go to sleep at night, but it's also what gets me up in the morning.
With that being said, we are a team. And it's gonna take a team effort and a process to make sure that we're leading our kids into the right direction. When you think about assessing with differentiated learning, we have two types of categories here. For ongoing assessments, we're gonna start to look at journal entries from the kids, short answer tests, open response tests, notebooks, oral response, portfolios. We're gonna look at all those things, and to get our data, what we're going to use is we're gonna use anecdotal notes. So when you're sitting in your small groups, go ahead and start writing down some things that you see. Okay, maybe Johnny is having problems with sight words, but Melissa's having trouble with fluency. How am I gonna help them achieve their goal? Observation checklist. You know, the district provides you with observation checklist in Curriculum Corner. So all you would have to do is go to Curriculum Corner to look up those checklists. We have skills checklists, whether or not they are fluency checks, whether or not there are sight word checks, whether or not they're the 1 minute MAD minutes. Classroom discussions, when you're going over your turn and talks. When you're listening to students doing their turn and talks, you may want to sit next to the person or the group that's having problems so that you can help them talk out the questions. Small group interaction, teacher-student conferences. When we're setting our goals with our kids, this is another way that you could go ahead and utilize differentiated instruction. And we have our exit cards, which are our exit tickets and performance tasks, things like that. Those are things that we're going to start utilizing. So when we come in and we're doing walkthroughs, we're going to start checking off some of those things. Okay, this is how I saw differentiated learning inside of the classroom. Assessments in differentiated classrooms. Assessments drive instruction, which we all know. Assessments occur constantly as the unit begins, throughout the unit, and as the unit ends. So we have put together a list, and it's also in your handout, a list of ways that we can survey on how we're going to achieve those ongoing assessments. Whether or not they're little cahoots that we can use, whether or not they're just little assessments where you're walking around and you can put little checks on students' desks. Okay, they got that. Okay, what can I do now to differentiate my learning for the kids that are not getting it? And as you saw in the video, you know, to make their school successful, they had a time where they went back to see how they were going to help these students master their assessments. Flexible grouping. That is going to be something that we're going to really hone on and utilize. I walked inside of a classroom and I saw that the teacher had everybody ability grouped, where I had all my high kids in one group. I had all my low kids in another group. I had all my medium kids in one group. We're going to talk about switching those up to where you have a high, medium, and a low kid in each group, to where they all can start to learn from each other. Students are part of many different groups based on the match of the task, the students' readiness and interest and learning styles. Meaning, what we mean by that, sometimes students select work groups and sometimes the teachers select them. Sometimes student group assignments and purple. Sometimes students group assignments are purposeful and sometimes random. So that means when you are setting up your groups, please do not have all your high kids in one group. Change is imperative in today's classroom. Why do we think change is imperative?
Well, you can't, if you don't change, you don't grow.
If you don't change, you don't change, you don't grow. Exactly, and if we don't change, we're not gonna grow as teachers, but we need to also plant those seeds and water it with our children. Activities and assignments. It takes teacher preparation. It takes whole group instruction. It takes uniform curriculum, meaning we all are getting together and we're coming up with a way that we can utilize differentiated instruction. And like I said, it's not just about our low kids, it's also about our high kids as well. Because our gifted and talented kids, we don't see the growth and improvement when we're looking at the STAR scores. When I see that they are passing the STAR, but I don't see that they're excelling and going forward. We're gonna talk about short-term lessons, making sure that our lesson plans are done 2 weeks in advance. We're gonna talk about short responses, fill in and answer questions. Sometimes for like a spelling test, some of these kids may not get it. Now, even though it's not on grade level, we can still give them a spelling test where we can say, okay, well, they know the phonics part of it and work to achieve that gap later on. So for instance, if we had a spelling test, we can fill out a piece of paper where they have 3 types of way the word was spelled. Let them circle it. If they can't get it that way, let's have a small group come to the back of the table with some magnetic letters. Hey, what is the first sound you hear in the word? To achieve that student, to where that student can achieve spelling in that way. Now I know you say, okay, well, how do I give a grade on that? And we'll talk about that in our next series. So we're gonna go from teacher preparation, whole group, universal curriculum to student experiences. We're gonna talk about the centers and the groups that they're gonna be in. We're gonna talk about extending those activities. And when we say extending those activities, that means that at a particular time in the day, we're gonna set up to where we do stop and drop. Stop and drop is where we go over those skills. Planning a focused curriculum. What should students know, understand, and be able to do? Know are the facts. We wanna know, what do they know? Understand, what are the concepts? What are the principles? What is it that we want them to understand? What will they be able to do? In the end, what is their thinking? What is their questioning? If I used social studies, for instance, if we talked about Columbus came to a new world, vocabulary, we would want them to know voyage, a new world, soar, survey, the concept, exploration, change, new world. They came to when they came to the new world, what happened? They were exploring. They wanted what? Change. To be able to do. What are we gonna assess in the end? Or we're gonna assess what? What they know and what they understand. So when I talk about know, these are the facts, vocabulary, dates, places, names, example. What you know can be massively forgot if you're not really honing on those skills. So if I came and I taught you something today, what am I doing tomorrow that's gonna help you remember what you did the day before? Students who understand something can explain it clearly, if you give examples. They can use it, they can compare and contrast, they can relate to other instances, they can transfer it to unfamiliar settings, and they can discover the concept.
Can you hear me?
Students who understand can combine it appropriately with other understandings. So if we go on the skill, if they can understand the skill, if we've given them the understanding, if we've given them the And if we kind of put it in a way that they can understand, that's not making it to where, okay, well, Miss Sweet, they're not on grade level. That's not on grade level, how I'm gonna grade it. You're gonna grade it the same. The only thing that's different is you're putting it on their level. And like I said, I know there are gonna be questions, but we're gonna discuss on just how we're gonna grade that later. Right now, we're just gonna talk about how we're gonna try to start incorporating differentiation within the classroom. Be able to do. So remember, you have your know, understanding, and be able to do. It says, these are the basic skills of any discipline. They include the thinking skills such as analyzing, evaluating, and synthesizing. These are the skills of planning, the skills of being an independent learner. Remember that word, independent learner. The skills of setting and following the criteria, the skills of utilizing the tools of knowledge, such as adding, dividing, understanding multiple perspectives, following a timeline, calculating longitude, or following the scientific method. Change is difficult, slow, and uncertain. This is where we come to you guys, because change is what? Is evident. We know that we're gonna have to have some type of change. And it's gonna be slow. We're not gonna say, let's go in and when I walk in tomorrow, I wanna see differentiation. I'm saying that when I walk in, I wanna see that it's evident inside your classroom, but it's gonna take us some time. Because now we're gonna go back in and we're gonna look at some things within the curriculum. Ways to differentiate content. Reading partners, reading buddies. When you do your turn and talks, make sure you have partnered your lower kids with someone that they can learn from. Make sure it's someone that when they're having their turn and talk, that they're also giving them the opportunity to talk. Make sure that when you're walking around, you are listening to what they're saying, to make sure that they're understanding, to make sure that their partners are telling them some things. Core reading. We talked about that earlier. Some people feel that core reading is not reading, but it actually is for some of our lower kids. Because sometimes they need to be able to hear that word from someone. But that's when we talk about putting kids in flexible grouping. Because if I have you with a kid that reads higher than you, 9 times out of 10, they're learning from that kid. They're listening, they're core reading. And that's when you come back and you take your analytical notes. You have them go back and say, okay, small group setting, let me bring you back. Now I want you to read the book to me. That helps the kid become successful. If you have them going back, okay, now you've core read, now you're gonna come back with me and now we're gonna read. Flip books. Those are little books that they can have that look a little bit like this. They look like this. Or we can make little flip books. Show ownership to where they can go in, they can write, then we can flip the pages and have flip books and things like that. We can have it to where it's this way. There are all kind of ways, hot dog, hamburger, however you want it to be, whatever you want to eat on that day. Split journals are basically the same. And books on tape. You know, we also have a program called Kurzweil. And any kid in the district can use it. So this year, we're gonna really hone on and we're gonna really use it to where they're signing in and they're signing on to where it's a program to where it reads to the kids. Whether or not you're online, whether or not the teacher has put a worksheet in the Google Classroom, it helps. And like I said, it's not a tool that says, okay, well, Miss Sweet, it's reading it to them. It's okay. Long as at the end, they're getting long as we're meeting that final goal in the end. Ways to differentiate content. Highlighters, highlight in your Google Classroom. That's different because your kids were able to go in, they were able to write little notes, you know, organizers, varied text, supplemental materials, okay, highlighting the text. There's a function within the Google, when you go in your Google Classroom and you go on Jamboards and things like that, you can show the kids, okay, highlight this. Why did you highlight this? Put a little sticky note on the side to where they can say, okay, I'm gonna write a little cliff note. You know, if I was reading a book about the 3 little pigs, okay, pig 1, what did pig 1 do? Next page, what did pig 2 do? What did pig 3 do? So that you can go back in and you can say, hey, I can remember all these things so I can apply this knowledge to my understanding. And then, you know, the think, pair, share. That's another Keegan strategy that the district has went over so that we can put all this information together and we can have differentiated content. Now, what's the process? The process is fun and games, cubing, think outs, choices, centers, tiered lessons, and contracts. So that means we're all coming together, we're talking about the process. Now here, make learning fun. Put it inside of a game. It's okay. The kids love Kahoots, they love Quizlets. When we get together, okay, small group. Now I want you guys to play this game. It could be a noun game. Person, place, or thing. They're still getting the concept, but now they're playing it in a game form. Making sure your centers are differentiated. For instance, if I have you in a group, your baggie may have phonics. Your baggie may have nouns. Your baggie may have the spelling content. You're all in the same group, but yours may differ, but there's someone there that can help you. Developing the tiered activities. I just said that, you know, having tiered activities. Creating an activity that is interesting, high level, causes students to use key skills to understand the key ideas. You know, selecting activity organizers. What are the concepts, the generalization. Think about your students, the use of assessments. Is it interesting? Because we all know that the little boys, things are not interesting because when you go to the library, half of the books talk about what? Princesses and horses and things like that. We're gonna have to start pulling content that the boys that they will find interesting. Because if you can pull that, then you can tie that in to a skill that they will need. You know, there are a lot of graphic organizers in there. So if we want the boys to get interested, let's put out a little comic strip. Hey, you go ahead and you do me a comic strip on this. He may not be able to write a whole story. But if you ask him to use a comic strip, then that's honing in on their skills. That's something that they liked as well. And I noticed Mr. Buxby in his video, he did the exact same thing. You know, okay, maybe you can't do this, but here I'm going to give you something else you can do, but it's still tied into the skill. You know, chart the complexity of the activity. When I say chart that can also be something that we can use when we use our STAR data chart or our DRA chart. You know, are they in high, medium, or low category? Chart, okay, this month they were here, next month they are here. You can also put that, yes ma'am.
I noticed that in one class that I was watching, a teacher was actually took a highlighter and highlight, and with the highlighter, different colors, you know, color coded the type of skill that will be required for that kid, for the students to complete. So, say for instance, in that multi-level grouping, she had one child that was special education, one child that was GT, and one child that was pretty much in the regular middle portion. And she highlighted, okay, you, sir, are going to do all the yellow questions, which were the low skill. You're going to do the orange ones, which are the high skill, and then the child that was in the middle, got the green questions, so that way they were still able to work together, and when and then when they finished the activity, they were all still able to get the answers together because they were all responsible but on their level.
Exactly, and I like that. So Ms. Farley, I want you to also, when we come back, I want you to come back and explain that part on the SPED side of things,
Okay.
on how we can highlight things to where they're all in the same group, but it's not saying, hey, you can't answer these questions because they're not on your level. They will never know if it's on their levels or not.
Right.
And then ask some help, and it doesn't make the child feel
Yes.
bad if they let someone out.
Now, we're gonna talk about how we're gonna design it. What we're gonna use, what is the contract, how we're gonna tie all of this together. What are the skills components? We're gonna focus on skill-based tasks. Assignments are based on pre-assessments of the student's readiness. Students work at their own level and pace. And that's the key to differentiated learning. The content component. We're gonna focus on applying, extending, or enriching key contents. And when we say that, extending, coming back to what you don't know, enriching, that would be more of our GT component. That would be the enrichment component. Because right now, you're writing in what is gonna be your GT enrichment part. Now, we're gonna differentiate so that you will know your GT enrichment part. What is the timeline? A teacher sets completion dates and check-in requirements. That's when we're going back in, we're doing pre-assessments. We're going back in, we're looking, we're okay, you got that skill. Now I'm gonna write it down on my clipboard. They were able to utilize that skill. Next skill. Things where you can go back and say, okay, I was successful in this. Students select the order of work. What are those called? We have utilized something here. What do we call those things when the students get to go in and they get to pick the tasks that they want to?
Choice board.
Say it again, Ms.
A
Farley.
choice board.
A choice board. This is where choice boards come in. So you're wondering, okay, well, why are we using choice boards? Because we want to highlight differentiated learning. The agreement. The teacher agrees to let the student have freedom to plan their time. Students agree to use the time responsibly. That's when you go back in and say, okay, I want you to pick 2 skills that you want to use on this choice board. You have this amount of time to come up with the product. That means they're showing ownership. Plus there are consequences when you don't, because we're gonna start using those things for homework as well. To where we're not giving out, I want you to complete 10 problems, they're all on the same level, and you have parents coming back and say, okay, well, Susie didn't understand that, Miss Sweet. This way you can say, okay, Susie picked out 2 things that was on her level, and now I'm gonna assess that's on her level. So now that when you talk to the parent and you go back and you have these conversations with the parent, you can say, hey, I'm teaching on a 1st grade level. Right now, Susie is on a kindergarten level. I'm still teaching her on a 1st grade level, but I'm also giving her instruction on a kindergarten level. I'm sending her to RTI for extra intervention, but this is how I'm differentiating her learning. What we're giving you, the support. To support differentiation, our CICs, our campus instructional specialists they're gonna come back in and they're gonna model differentiation for the teachers. So each group will have their own CIC come in and model this for them. This is what we want to see as a campus, and this is what the district wants to see. We're gonna provide materials in time. Right now, if you look on Curriculum Corner, you're gonna start to see differentiated activities. So we're gonna start giving you those tools. So those are things that you don't have to look up. Those would be like literacy centers, learning centers. Right now, if you go inside of the library, we have the boxes already ready for you to check out. So all you would have to do is go in and check out a box for learning centers so that when we go inside of the classroom, oh, they're working on this literacy center. They're showing ownership, but this is also on their level. And we're gonna provide planning time about differentiation. So we're gonna have an alternate schedule to where we're gonna come and we're gonna let you sit down as a group. And we're gonna provide subs inside of your classroom to where you'll have that 3-hour component, that 3-hour period where you can all sit together and say, okay, well this is how, these are the things that we're gonna use for differentiation. The focus of school change must be classroom practice. So, this is gonna be your time in these series to start practicing on how we want and what we want it to look like. In learning to differentiate, the teacher may need help with, and we know you're gonna need help. You're gonna need help with the rationale of differentiation. You're gonna need help with pre-assessed and student readiness, effective work with classroom groups. We know those things. So as we give you time to do your DRAs, we're gonna send people in there to help you so that we can get this done faster. We're gonna also ask you to utilize your iStation as grouping. And we're gonna also talk about that in another series on how we can start using differentiation with iStation. This iStation is gonna put everybody in a group. Okay, they needed this skill, they needed this skill. And then you can go in and look at some of the lessons on iStation that would help you differentiate. And then you can start assigning those skills when it's time for them to do their iStation time. Like I said, flexible grouping as well. Flexible grouping comes up quite often because this is how kids learn from each other. In learning to differentiate, teachers may need help with appropriate use of varied instructional strategies, using concept-based instruction, develop carefully focused tasks and products, knowing how to teach struggling learners with remedial expectations. That is the key at the bottom. Knowing how to teach struggling learners without remedial expectation, I don't want you to have remediation in mind as the goal, because that is not the goal. The goal is differentiated learning and how we're going to reach them to where in the end we can go back and master their skills to see if they are learning, the rate that they're learning, or they're learning from their peers. Like I said, once again, we're going to give you flexible planning. We're going to give you a planning time. We're going to also model for you. We're going to send CICs into your classroom. Okay, well, Ms. Sweeten, your turn and talk. I noticed that, Johnny was not on task, meaning that he didn't understand the question. This is a way that you could have went around, and as you were going around, listen to what they're saying. So it's not gonna be a I got you moment, it's gonna be a teachable moment, because they're gonna come back to you and they're gonna say, hey, maybe if we can do it this way. And then if you feel like, you can say, can you come and model for me? Because we want you to feel comfortable. Say, hey, can you come and model for me? The look forwards. What are we looking for? What are the expectations? Learning experience are based on student readiness, interest, or learning profile. We're looking at the assessments of students' need. Is it ongoing? Are you using your clipboard? Are you walking around putting a check on their desk? Okay, they got that skill, they got that skill, they got that skill. Are you having mini assessments where you're using your Quizlets, where you're using your games that you're gonna come up with? The teacher is primarily a coordinator of time, space, and activities rather than primarily a provider of group information. That means that you are gonna also be a part of these groups. I don't want you just to walk around and to observe. I want you to jump in. Hi, Ms. Gibson, how are you doing? Oh, you're talking about Christopher Columbus. And you're getting into the conversations. And when we walk in, this is what we're going to look for. Also, inside the classroom, we're gonna look for how is the the student work, how does it vary? We're gonna look at the groups, how are the groups varying? You know, what did I see? Did I see differentiated instruction when I was in your group? Okay, I saw differentiated instruction because I saw that you had the green questions, you had the yellow questions, you had the orange questions. There is no recipe, no blueprint for change. Next time we meet, we're going to discuss the next part of our series. Once you have done your exit ticket, because your exit ticket is going to be about what did you learn in today's series. When you're done with your exit ticket, please put it on the door and make sure you have signed in.